Memorial altars are being put together across the country in honor of those lost in the Sewol ferry disaster. The Korean Coast Guard has released dramatic footage from the first moments of their rescue operation. The captain can be clearly seen abandoning ship. And prosecutors will summon the CEO of Sewol operator Daejeon Marine Company and likely the company's crew owner Yoo Byung-eun this week. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Tuesday, April 29th. I'm Luke Clary. 14 days have passed since the Sewol ferry disaster rocked the nation. Memorial altars in honor of the souls lost aboard the ship can be found across the country.
Koreans pack a crew memorial altar set up in Daejeon. Mourners, many of them in tears, took time out of their busy schedules to visit the altar. They lament that offering flowers are the only thing they can do for the deceased.
어른들 말을 듣고 뱃속에서 꿈쩍도 안 하고 움직이지 않고 있다 그런 희생을 당한 거에 대해서 너무 부끄럽고 죄스럽고.
Students who came by the altar after their midterm exams prayed for their peers who would have been scared and in agony in their last moments.
같은 나이 친구고 죽었지만 우리가 이거 하는 모습을 보고 있을 것 같아서 하늘나라에서 편히 있어라.
A volunteer who had helped out the victims' families in Jindo Island came to the memorial station to work as a crowd control personnel and share their sorrow.
가슴 아픈 사연들 많이 접했거든요. 전라북도에서도 조문 행렬이 잘 이루어질 수 있도록 돕고자.
Memorial altars have been set up all over the nation so that Koreans, regardless of where they are, can pay respect for the victims and urge that no tragic catastrophe like the recent accident would ever happen again.
A video released by the Korean Coast Guard depicts the first moments of their rescue operation at the listing Sewol ferry. The footage clearly shows the ship's crew being rescued, but no passengers on deck.
Upon receiving the news of a ferry accident, Coast Guard patrol ship number 123 rushes to the scene. At 9:35 a.m., the patrol ship dispatches a rescue boat as soon as it arrives at the accident site. Rescue helicopters are seen hovering over the half-sunken ferry, but not even a single passenger is on the deck outside waiting for help. It's so deserted that it's hard to believe that the ferry is carrying 476 people. That's because most of the passengers, including over 300 Daejeon high school students, were waiting in their cabins as they were instructed. Even then, not all the cabins from the 3rd through the 5th decks were submerged. If they were ordered to abandon ship, many of them would have evacuated into the sea and saved themselves. In fact, one passenger from the 4th deck, spotting a rescue boat nearby, is seen jumping into the water. The Coast Guard claimed that it was difficult to enter the ferry's interior because it had already rolled over at a sharp angle, so they had to issue an evacuation order from outside the ferry.
함내 경보를 이용해서 승객 총원 퇴선하라는 바다로 뛰어내리라는 방송을 실시했습니다.
The heartbreaking video clearly shows that there was ample time and opportunities to save countless lives only if the passengers had been out on the deck.
Now for more analysis of the Coast Guard footage. The ship's captain is clearly seen abandoning ship in his underpants ahead of the ship's passengers. Other crew members escaped through an emergency route that only they were aware of.
At 9:38 a.m., when rescue operations began in earnest, some of the Sewol passengers were jumping off the ship into the sea. Just then, one person began exiting the ship in the staff-only section of the bow in his underpants. He was the first one to be rescued from the capsizing ferry. That person is none other than the captain Lee Jun-seok of the doomed ferry. As soon as he safely boarded a rescue boat, he rushed to his center to stay as far away from water as possible. The other crew also escaped from the sinking ferry. The fact that the crew used ropes that had been prepared in advance and were carrying walkie-talkies in their hands has prompted many to suspect that the Sewol crew contacted one another during the escape. Instead of jumping into the sea and breaking window glasses to save the passengers, these people just watched the rescue operations from afar. They ran for their own lives without looking back.
대승님 내렸습니다.
The condemning video evidence directly contradicts the accounts of the Sewol crew.
As the Sewol crew abandoned ship, rescue workers on the scene boarded the sinking ferry in an attempt to release the ship's life rafts. Take a look.
The captain and some of the crew of the doomed Sewol ferry were the first ones to escape from the sinking ship instead of rescuing passengers. Just when they were running for their lives, one Coast Guard official was struggling to launch a life raft. He had been trying to launch it even before the crew's escape. He pulled out the safety pins and kicked the boat in an attempt to deploy it. But launching the raft is actually the crew's responsibility. While the Coast Guard official was doing his best to save the lives of the passengers, the crew of the sinking ship were busy saving their own.
One day after a KBS report urged the Coast Guard to release footage from the first moments of the rescue efforts, the Coast Guard delivered. But questions remain about why it took so long for this dramatic video to be made public.
This is a video footage of the initial rescue taken from a Coast Guard helicopter. The Coast Guard had released this video clip on the first day of the ferry disaster. But another video filmed from a Coast Guard patrol ship was made public yesterday, 13 days after the incident. That means the video was not with the Coast Guard, but with the Joint Investigation Headquarters. The Coast Guard source claims that they received the video file recently from the investigators, and it was the investigation team's decision to make it public.
의혹이 있다. 왜 안 했냐. 그래서 아마 그거에 대해서 우리가 숨기고 그런 거 아니니까 그래서 아마 합수부 측에서 결정을 해서 공개한 것 같습니다.
But the Joint Investigation Headquarters tells a different story. It is true the video was voluntarily submitted by the Coast Guard for investigation purposes, but it wasn't the investigation team that had decided to release it to the public. The video has been aired, but it still isn't clear who decided to make the video public. To compound the confusion, allegations had been raised that the video has been edited. In a set of photos released a few days ago, 4 are not shown in the video footage. Those pictures missing from the video clip include the captain getting out of the wheelhouse and a crew member jumping onto the rescue boat. The Coast Guard explained that the released photos had not been captured from the video footage, but had been taken separately while videotaping the scene. The Coast Guard's video contains important information needed to determine whether the Coast Guard's rescue attempts had been appropriate. But questions remain over who made the decision to make the video public and why now.
Prosecutors have summoned the CEO of Sewol operator Daejeon Marine Company. The true owner of the company, Yoo Byung-un, will also likely be summoned this week.
Prosecutors will question Kim on the flow of capital owned by Yoo and his family. Prosecution has made it clear that Kim will be grilled as a close aide to Yoo rather than as the head of Daejeon. Prosecutors plan to subpoena Yoo and his family this week after questioning his 7 aides. Prosecutors raided a business consulting firm owned by Yoo and his 2 sons to obtain more evidence before interrogating them.
압수수색 들어온 거 관련해서는
Businesses owned by the Yoo family gave more than $19 million to 3 consulting companies, including the one that was raided, in consulting fees. Prosecutors believe that they are paper companies used for money laundering. But the Yoo family has denied the suspicions, saying that the firms just received consulting fees. However, the family's explanation indicates that Yoo played a substantial role in the management of affiliates. Prosecutors are said to have obtained evidence of Yoo's involvement in managing the companies and creation of secret funds through an accounting company.
Suspicions over illegal loans provided to the owner and operating company of the Sewol ferry continue to rise in the wake of the disaster. Financial authorities have launched a special probe into institutions that might have played a role.
Daejeon Marine Company imported the Sewol ferry from Japan in 2012 and spent over $14 million on its remodeling to expand its capacity. Of that, around $9.6 million, or 2/3 of the amount, were borrowed from the Korea Development Bank. Around $7.7 million were borrowed for purchasing the ship, while the remaining $1.9 million for its remodeling. The question is whether the loan was obtained illegally. If Cheonghae Marine Company went bankrupt and had to sell the Sewol at an auction, its liquidating value would be $7.5 million, which is $2.1 million less than the amount of the received loan. What's more, when the bank provided the loan, it issued loan monitoring for the company because of its financial risks. In 2011, the year before Cheonghae Marine received the loan, it posted a deficit of more than $1 million, which significantly undermines its credibility. However, the Korea Development Bank granted Cheonghae Marine's request for a loan.
제주도 관광에 한 붐이 일어났잖아요. 이 배를 좀 더 투입하게 되면은 거기에서 좀 수익이 늘어날 거다. 운임인상 문제들도.
The allegation of illegal loans has spread to other banks as well. Saemori, an affiliate run by the owner of Sewol Ferry Yu Byung-an, received a collateral-free loan amounting to $21.5 million from the Industrial Bank of Korea and the National Agriculture Cooperative Federation in 2008. The money was used to acquire the Semo Group, which was at the time was under court receivership. The Financial Supervisory Service are investigating the affiliates of Cheonghae Marine and financial institutions that provided the loans.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and other cabinet members have paid their respects to the victims of the sunken ferry. Here's the story.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe laid a flower on a memorial altar for the victims of the ill-fated Sewol, which was set up at the headquarters of the Korean Residents Union in Japan, known as Mindan. He made an unscheduled visit to the memorial ahead of his trip to Europe.
被害に遭われた方々あるいは犠牲者のご家族の皆様に改めてお見舞いを申し上げたいと思います。
Prior to the visit, the Japanese Prime Minister said that the thought of the sex slavery victims deeply pains him. The remarks are a far cry from his previous stance denying Japan's conscription of sex slaves. Japan's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida and Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga also visited the memorial and mourned the death of the ferry passengers. In particular, the Japanese Foreign Minister said that the Japanese are ready to help South Korea in overcoming the tragedy. At the memorial, a board is full of messages in respect for the victims of the Sewol sinking. However, Japan's Administrative Reform Minister Tomomi Inada paid a visit to the Yasukuni Shrine honoring Japanese war dead and Class A war criminals on Monday. Her visit overshadowed the meeting of the San Francisco Peace Treaty between Japan and Allied powers, which took effect on April 28, 1952.
Concerns over ferry safety are on the rise on the eastern coast of Korea in the wake of the Sewol tragedy. It's been discovered that many ferries are experiencing engine issues.
A passenger ferry that can accommodate up to 985 people is stranded at a port. One of its 4 engines is broken because fishing ropes got tangled inside.
위를 거의 지나간다든지 옆으로만 지나가도 물속에 잠겨 있는 것은 흡입구로 다 흡입이 됩니다. 그래서 그게 사고의 원인이 됩니다.
The ferry has experienced technical problems 6 times this year alone because of discarded items such as fishing nets floating in the sea.
폐거물이라든지 이런 위험물들이 동해상 항로상에 존재하고 있기 때문에 그런 것 때문에 굉장히 운항상 조심을 하고.
This passenger ferry that can accommodate more than 900 people almost hits the ocean floor each time it arrives at the port. The depth should be at least 3.5 meters for the ferry to operate safely, but the water at this port is too shallow because of the piles of sand.
낮으니까 크러치를 펄펄 축을 돌려야 될 거 아니에요. 이거도 엔진실에서 크러치 여면은 벌써 펄펄이 이제 모래가 있다고요.
Any technical glitches on ships operating in the East Sea can result in disasters because of the deep waters and strong winds.
The government has conducted emergency safety checks on some 4,000 social overhead capital facilities. The inspections reveal many problems. Let's take a look.
This is a device that blocks traffic in case a fire breaks out inside the tunnel. It's in proper working condition. Fire extinguishers are inspected. Inspectors check an emergency phone.
시스템 점검입니다.
They also check the emergency doors. It took only 15 minutes to inspect the tunnel and its safety facilities.
오늘 터널 점검 끝이에요?
예, 끝입니다.
A safety check was conducted at Ulsan Airport at the same time. Inspectors checked to see how fast the fire engines arrive and whether the anti-fire doors work properly. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport began safety checks on social overhead capital infrastructure on Monday. The ministry pledged to carry out intensive inspections to make sure that those facilities are in good working conditions. However, inspections on the first day fall short of expectations. Some experts say that the ministry should have conducted drills for the people to learn how to operate such safety facilities in the event of an emergency.
상황을 닥친 사람들이 스스로 뭔가 능동적으로 또 대피라든지 대응을 해야 되는 부분들이 있거든요. 재난 상황에서 상당히 혼란한 상황에서도 확실하게 인지할 수 있게끔 그런 시설들이 갖춰져 있는지.
The ministry said that the safety checks will continue until mid-May with some 1,200 officials participating.
Now we'll take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. And that's it for this edition of News Today. We'll see you again at the same time tomorrow. Have a great day.